Hello my dear YouTuber friends, and I do hope you're all keeping well. Welcome to this new video, and this is my promised newbie tutorial for flying the Concorde. So for taking off, setting up the systems in a newbified way, and then landing with a glide slope landing at our destination airport. I'm going to change things up a little bit. Instead of flying from Heathrow to New York, I'm going to be flying from Heathrow over to Frankfurt Airport. Only a short journey, probably a world's first for the Concorde. Only a short journey, but I'm going to split this video up into two different parts. That's because I'm going to be explaining quite a lot to make it as easy to follow as possible. And to do it in one hit might be a bit much for a lot of people. So it's going to be in two different parts. I'm going to be flying this in one hit myself, but you're going to be seeing this video in two different parts, and I'm going to try and release those parts as close together as I can. So let's not dilly-dally, let's get into the video. And for this adventure, we're going to start off on the main menu and go to World Map. Now, like I said, I'm going to try and make this as newbified as possible. So we're going to set our course up actually on the world map, and it is possible. It's an underrated feature of Flight Simulator 2020. And I'm going to show you how this is possible to get a decent course set up. We're going to set off from Heathrow Airport, heading towards Germany at least. So runway 9 left. Set as departure. I've got the Concorde chosen, of course. Zoom out. And we'll just zoom out so we can see Frankfurt. Why am I not? Oh, Frankfurt. There we are. And at Frankfurt, let's just zoom to details. We're going to try and land at runway 7C. So it's pretty much 7 Central runway there. Or the centre runway. So we'll click there, set as arrival, and as you can see, it's quite a long runway, so it's easily going to be able to hold Concorde. You want to find runways to land at around sort of 1,200, 1,300 feet, so that you can slow down enough to stop and taxi off with the Concorde. Now, that's a straight route. That's, yeah, as you can see there, 55 minutes. Remember, this is a Concorde. That's not good enough though. We want something that resembles a proper flight plan. So we're going to go to the top here, just below your aircraft icon. And where it's got VFR, direct GPS, click on that and go to high altitude airways. And it will give us some resemblance of a flight plan. Now, I don't believe these are proper flight plans that you would use in real world procedures. Just gives you some kind of, resemblance of one. So with various different waypoints along the way. But that will do for us. Now, another thing we should do here, if you set up a flight plan, this flight plan like this, or something similar, go to your nav log and just check where it wants you to descend. So it's around Nick there. So when we get to around here, or maybe just before it, I'm going to start my descent phase. And that's pretty accurate. Even though this is showing the Concorde and it shows it for similar airliners, that's actually pretty accurate. When we get to around here, we could start our descent phase. It actually takes probably a lot longer than it's certainly a lot longer than actually reaching this point. It's almost twice as long to descend and land at the airport because you're slowing down quite a bit. But we'll keep that in mind. Whatever course you set up, just look at your descent where it wants you to descend. Just go back one, I would suggest, and descend around there. So, Nick, that's where I'm going to start my descent phase. Okay, so with that set up, live weather selected, Concorde selected, let's go fly. Right, here we are, runway 9 left at Heathrow Airport, in external mode, of course. First thing I'm going to do, jump into the aircraft. The fuel you have on board here, what is it, 58,000 here, 58,100. It's enough to get you to JFK, New York. We don't need that much fuel. So the first thing I'm going to do, because it will affect your landing if you don't shorten this. You're going to have too much fuel, basically, too much weight when you come to landing. I'm just going to decrease the actual main fuel tab here to at least half that, maybe 30, beyond 30% fuel. It's enough. Get that down, get that figure down to around 25,000. That's more than enough to get us to Frankfurt. Gonna keep the passenger weight as the same, so we should have a full load of passengers. Let's just move that now. Now I've changed it. There we go. All the excited passengers are on the aircraft there. All ready to take off. Okay, so that's the first thing I've set up. Second thing I'm going to set up here, I'm going to put my nose down, flaps lever basically. So I've got it assigned to my velocity 1. Just down to 5 degrees, down 1 notch. Take a moment to kick in. For our takeoff configuration, you'll see the nose will start drooping, that's fine. Okay, and onward from here, what we're going to do now... Now, we are in live multiplayer, so if you're on what is it, about 11 AM my time, if you're flying around Heathrow and I'm blocking the runway, I do apologise. But we'll keep it on live multiplayer. Gonna come down and set our autopilot assigned altitude, which is here. Now we're gonna go straight up to 24,000 feet. So forget any real world restrictions. We're just gonna fly straight up to 24,000 feet. Supersonic. We don't want to fly supersonic before we hit 24,000 feet for noise abasion and goodness knows what. We don't want to smash windows. When we get there, then we can go to our supersonic phase. But that's our first port of call. I'm also going to turn on our flight directors. Flight directors are here, left and right. Turn them both on. See some things change in the cockpit there. It just aids us when we go to our autopilot phase. Another thing I'm going to do, what I should tell you, let's get back to my default cockpit view. If you have a controller, I'm going to link the video I did about setting up custom views in a Concorde and even assigning them to buttons on your controller. At least have to easy reach these 3 views. One for your center panel, one for your FMS. We are going to alter things here, and it also shows you your Mach and altitude here as well, which is quite useful. And one so you can get easy reach for your afterburner. We're going to turn these on now. So just lift up the keys and that will enable our afterburner. When we've taken off, we're going to turn them off so we don't get to supersonic speeds below 24,000. And then we'll turn them back on when we get to 24,000 feet. So set up a view for the center panel there, FMS. And the afterburner. That's mainly what we're going to use in this tutorial flight. Anything else, I do have another view set up. My overhead view. When I get beyond 10,000 feet, I'll turn my landing lights on, off, and then back on when we come back down to 10,000 feet. That's optional, but at least those 3 views. That's all we're going to really be using in this tutorial. Okay, let me talk now about the takeoff procedures. We're going to take off. Oh, actually, let me show you this view first. And let's just go to our perf page, our performance page. Zoom in a bit. It'll tell you your V1 and takeoff speeds, basically. So around 220 knots just over, we can pull back in the yoke and take off. So go to your perf page, and then it'll just show you all your sort of V1 and rotation speeds and goodness knows what. Let's go back up. Keep in mind, chaps, this is a Newbie tutorial. If I miss certain steps, it's because I'm keeping it simple. It may not be the most thorough tutorial, but it will get you from A to B safely. Soon we're going to take off our parking brake, go full throttle, afterburners will kick in. We're going to get to that 220 just beyond, pull back, raise our landing gear, and before you know it, we'll get to 250 knots. When we hit that 250 knots, come down to your view for your afterburners and then turn all these off so we don't get to that supersonic speed, as I mentioned before. Let's go back to the view I was talking originally out there. I'm going to try and maintain the 250 knots, so I'm going to pitch the nose of the aircraft. If I'm going too fast, I'll pitch up. If I'm going too slow, I'll pitch down, just to keep that 250 knot speed. I'm going to raise my visor, raise my flaps lever all the way up so the visor come over the top of the windows here. When all that's done, I'll go through this again in a moment. When all that's done, we're going to hit Autopilot 1, INS, which will follow, by the way, the course we set up on the world map is now inputted into our FMS, so all those points are now inputted. So when I click Autopilot 1 and INS, it will follow the course. We can relax a little bit then. Then I'm just going to come over here. Third from the right, we've got a max climb. I'm going to click that, left click that, and left click altitude acquired. So it acquires that 24,000 feet and then keeps us there until we change it. So let's just go through that again. Release the parking brake, throttle up, full afterburners, at 220 just beyond, pull back, raise our landing gear. We'll get to 250 knots. When we do, we'll get there pretty quickly. Turn off your afterburners. Then I'm going to try and pitch to maintain 250 knots. Raise our visor, or flaps lever, all the way up. So our nose will come up and the visor will come up across the windows. Then we come across to the autopilot panel. Click on Autopilot 1, INS, it will follow the course we got set in. Click on Max Climb and Altitude Acquired to climb to our 24,000 feet at our max climb rate. Seems a lot, but it's not that complicated. I'm going to try and take this slowly. So let's go, shall we? Release the parking brake. Just going to throttle up about halfway just to ensure my engines are all behaving. See they are by this readout. Let's go full throttle. Usually a 1, 2, 3 there. I can see the afterburners have kicked in from external view. I can hear them as well. So get to our 220 knots. Nice and relaxed. No need to panic here. 220 knots. I guess people are now relieved we're taking off. And that will do. We can pull back our yoke. Raise our landing gear. We've got to 250 knots already, so I'm going to come down to this view and turn off my afterburners. Back up to this view. Let's just move my mouse down. You can see I'm maintaining that 250 knots. I'm just going to turn my visor up. Another thing I should have mentioned, actually. I'm going to bring up my VFR map. Just make sure you're maintaining that 250 knots. You can see our course there on the map. Just going to zoom out a little bit. Bring up your VFR map. Maybe stir to the left a bit so you get towards that course. Now I've got my visor up though. Autopilot 1 on and INS. And it will follow that course for me. I can take my hands off the yoke. Click on max climb to climb to that altitude at our max rate. And altitude acquired. Hold on. Hands off. Simple as that. The autopilot has taken over. Hopefully, yep, afterburners have clicked off or turned off because we turned them off. Let's just come down to this view. You will see we will actually gather speed rather quickly. But before we get, when we get to 24,000 feet basically, we'll just be before our Mach 1 speed, the speed of sound. So we shouldn't be cracking any windows. Because I turned Autopilot 1 on and INS, I've got the flight directors on, which I showed you before, it's following our course, as you can see here, no problem. I've just clicked Max Climb to climb at our maximum rate, that 24,000 feet, and altitude acquired, so it acquires that altitude and holds us there. All very straightforward stuff. If that was a little bit fast, just rewind the video and give it a couple of goes. It takes a couple of goals to get it right, but it's not that difficult. We'll climb to our 24,000 feet. Keep the VFR map open because there's a couple of things I want to show you here. I've not inputted yet our destination, our source of vectors for our arrival. The way it stands at the moment, it's just going to take us generally towards there. We're not going to catch the glide slope at 7C that way. So we're going to have to change things up, which I'll show you in a moment. I'll just let it continue. Come back down to that view with your FMS. It shows you your max speed and your altitude. Oh, I've gone past 10,000 feet. Doesn't matter. I've cleared 10,000 feet. Landing lights all off. And we're just going to follow that course now. Nice and simple, chaps. There's probably a couple more procedures that you could do there and just keep this nice and simple. So be kind with the comments down below. Mach 0.81. Altitude, yeah, we're getting up to that 24,000. As we approach the 24,000, you'll see this slow down as we get near to that 24,000. And what will happen is, it will click off altitude acquired and go to altitude hold mode, and then we'll change a few things up. In fact, when we reach 24,000 feet, I'll talk about this now. I'm going to click on Arm Auto Throttle 1 and Mach Hold, and it will hold essentially our Mach we're doing, or our speed we're doing, or the airspeed we're doing, essentially. You can avoid coming up to 24,000 feet now. Avoid breaking the sound barrier and smashing windows, basically. So there we go. We're near 24,000 feet. Arm Auto Throttle 1 and Mach Hold. It will hold our airspeed for us. And we'll just go down to that view and we can see that. It's not going to go. You can hear the engines throttling back a little bit too. Going to hold the speed and hold our altitude as well. Now, at this point, what I want to do is now transition to supersonic speeds. I'm going to increase our autopilot assigned altitude to 50,000 feet. That's going to be our cruising altitude for this flight. Going to come down to our afterburners and turn them all back on again. Now they're on, come back to this view. Turn your auto throttle off and go to altitude acquired again. And just move your throttle, if you've got them fully forward like I have, just move them back and forward again. And that will engage the afterburners. And before long, we will be braking any second now. In fact, we'll climb to 50,000 feet. And we've just broke Mach 1. As you can hear. Now the reason, obviously, you can't hear the sound when you move to the front of the aircraft is because the whole aircraft is breaking the sound barrier. Anything beyond the back of the aircraft you're not going to hear because it's going faster than the speed of sound, so it's not catching up to it, basically. But when you come behind, you get the sonic boom. Lots of people flying today, aren't there? Let's just take a look around, see if we see any names. As the sound quietens down because we're at the front of the aircraft and the speed is not catching up to us, the sound's not catching up to us. Maybe one or two names, I'm not sure, doesn't matter. Live weather, so lovely day to fly, just a smattering of cloud layer. Lovely day. So let's just keep an eye on that. Mach 1.2, how are our passengers doing? Well, they're loving it, aren't they? Absolutely loving it. Yep, chaps, speed of sound. We're zooming along at the maximum velocity. One of the things, if you don't own Concorde yet, one of the things it tells you on the splash screen is at the maximum velocity, it's faster than a rifle bullet. Come on. How can you not love this aircraft? And the systems do perform fairly well. There's been a few updates, a couple of niggles with it. And I'll get to that a little bit later. But generally, well. Now remember from our flight plan, we want to start descending just before we reach this Nick waypoint here. We're a bit away from it yet. Tell you what we're going to do now as we're climbing up. We're going to alter our destination and put in some vectors for our runway. Let's just move our VFR map up. This is why it's handy to have it. So around there, our airport destination. We're going to click on the FMS, make sure you're on flight plan. We're going to click the L6, this bottom button here, where it's got destination EDDF. That's our destination airport. Left click that. Left click on arrival. And basically it's asking us which runway do we want to line up for. we're going to line up for ILS 7C, 7 Central basically. Left click L4 there. You'll see now our VFR map, our flight plan has altered. It's given us some vectors into the airport. This is a little bit of a dodgy one here from Rudus. It would do a 180, and then basically the aircraft's got a wide angle of turn, so it'll come down here before it can reattach with the flight plan. But that's okay. If you add a star, you can go up and down to see the different stars. You're going to get a whole load of new vectors coming out way over here and way over there. It just adds too much. Because we created this flight plan with the world map, and it's not a real world flight plan, the flight plans don't behave, the stars rather, don't behave well with this particular flight plan if you set it up on the world map. So I'm going to choose no star. We don't want a star in there. We'll just keep it like that. It'll come here, turn 180, and then come towards the airport this way. It gives us a nice line into the runway here. And the last thing we need to do is go over here, insert temporary, insert it into the flight plan basically. So click on that, and it's in. And on your flight plan page, which we're on now, if you go up and down, you'll see a few more points added on our flight plan. Like these here are here. They pertain to these here. So that's all well and good. It's all entered. We'll do a little bit more with the FMS later, but now that's entered, get back to where we are on the route. How are we doing with our map? We've crossed map 2 already. So what we do now is go back to our afterburner switches and turn them off. It will maintain map 2 and just a bit over, in fact. And before long, we will be getting towards our top of descent already. So before I do that, let's just talk over what we did there. We took off, flight directors on, we turned on autopilot, engage INS to follow our flight plan. Clicked on max climb, it's climbed now to our 50,000 feet already. Oh no, it hasn't quite yet. It climbed to our 24,000 feet originally. And then once it did, it just switched over automatically to altitude hold on. Then we changed it to 50,000 feet, as you saw. One thing I'm going to do, and one thing I'll talk about while I've got time, this auto throttle thing, you used to be able to click it. This is update 1.3, I believe, for the Concorde. You used to be able to left click and it would go up in increments of 10. Now it doesn't seem to, unless I'm missing something. I've clicked everywhere. It just doesn't seem to go up in increments of 10. I'm going to take it all the way up to 350 because that will be the speed we want to slow down to, and I'll show you this later. Click off max hold now, in fact. Auto throttle wasn't on, so it doesn't matter, it wasn't affecting it. I'm going to take it all the way up to 350. This only goes up to 400, by the way, for the auto throttle, 400 knots. But I'll put it up to 350 because that's the speed we want to slow down to on our descent. So that's all fine. So I'll tell you what I'll do. Let's get outside. I'll stop the video here. Click off that VFR map. Stop the video here, and I'll bring you back later, or maybe the next day for you, to show you our descent into Frankfurt.